Well, good evening, friends. Welcome to the Seven Pillars Talk Show. You know, the seven pillars are established on helping us create our unbreakable life. What does that mean exactly? Well, an unbreakable life means that while we run into issues and things that are designed to pull us down, maybe stretch us, maybe bend us to help us grow, they're not really designed to break us. But it does take strategies, or what I like to call the seven pillars, to make sure that as we are experiencing life's challenges and troubles and growing pain points, that we become unbreakable. Well, every week we interview someone in the world, in our world here in Round Rock, Texas, actually this time, that have a business or a service that aligns with our seven pillars. And you may have forgotten, so I'll quickly remind you. Our seven pillars are self-discovery, mindset and mind shifting, our belief system, our trauma and or defining moments, community, which is what we're going to talk about today, our health, and finally our purpose. So those are the pillars that we are going to be digging into, and I'm so excited to introduce you to my friend Michelle. Michelle and I have met each other actually a couple of years ago through a networking group or a connection that we created. Yeah, it's called PWOW, and we've had a chance to visit for just a few moments this morning about what it is that she has done in her world to create connections. So grab a cup of coffee or a soda or whatever your drink of choice is and join us for a few moments here. But let's say hello to Michelle.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. Michelle, I think about the work that you've created and the community that you've established. As I've followed you on social media and different things, I've seen you've been president of Williamson County Association of Realtors. You've done their galas. You've just informed me that you're part of the chamber board. I mean, all of these different things. What does community mean to you?
So for me, it's really about, I grew up in Round Rock, so that's where my heart is. And I've just always been someone that just jumps in with both feet. And I want to make sure that I know what's going on in the community. And another reason for that is being a realtor. Knowing what's going on at the city level,
Sure.
the civic level, being able to, when I have clients move into town, especially from out of town, being able to find ways to connect them to things that they love to do, because it can be overwhelming when you've moved from somewhere else and you don't know anyone.
Right.
And so I just feel like it's really important to get involved and to give back to your community and to be able to share that with others.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you talked about people moving, because Williamson County, Travis County, Taylor, Texas, like all of these places. And I say Taylor like it's its own county because it kind of feels like it is with all of the growth that we're having out here. But people are coming, right? And so that means that they're moving to this area. They're having to establish community. And we talked for just real briefly before we got on about post-pandemic and how people have shifted and how people have changed. I believe that one of the first things that happened post-pandemic or during the pandemic is community was stripped away from people. And when that happens, we see that people have a harder time connecting and a harder time really finding out who they are and what they want and their purpose in life. But how would you say somebody should go about establishing community and creating connections?
Well, that's a great question. I guess for me too, is just, I think, like I said, getting involved. There's just so many opportunities. And for me in the Williamson County area, there's just so many opportunities. And I think when you volunteer somewhere, if you just find the place that fits. I have a friend that just decided on a whim that she was going to go volunteer and do something she's never done before. And lo and behold, that turned into a full-time job for her. That was perfect, because she stayed at home and worked at home for 20 years. And she was like, I really need to get out. I'm going to find a volunteer job. We went to an event and I took her along, and she said, I think I want to volunteer here. And so I think it's just finding your tribe of people, which I know is the question. How do you find your tribe of people? And I know that there's people that are really, like myself, I'll show up somewhere, I might not know a soul, and I'll be okay. But I know there's other people that they need someone to kind of like bring them along.
Right.
And I think as women, we need to embrace newcomers, whether they're new to the organization that we're volunteering in, if they're new to the area, invite someone along, because they might not feel comfortable just jumping in and saying, yeah, I don't know what I'm about to walk into.
Right.
But
it's really scary. Actually, I remember I was doing a study because I run a networking group in Taylor, and I did the study to find out, how people feel about, of course, public speaking, and I teach people public speaking, but also how they feel about networking. And the study said that 80% of people put networking like right up there with public speaking, like I'd rather die than do it. And that's, and even myself, I am super extroverted and I can go into places, but there are times that I'm like, oh, this doesn't feel great, right? So how do we overcome that? And I think, like you said, bring somebody with you. We all know somebody who's probably been sitting at home a little too long, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and I feel like that sometimes too. I'll show up at somewhere networking, and I kind of just stick and talk to the people that I know, knowing that there's a reason that I'm supposed to be here to like meet other people.
Yeah.
But one most recently, a chamber after hours, I was on my way out the door, and someone walked up to me and introduced themselves. We ended up having a great conversation, even though I was about to go out the door. We met for lunch. We decided that we were going to meet for lunch, and come to find out that we have a lot in common, and that she, is going to need to be refinancing her house. And I was able to connect her with a lender to be able to do that. So I think sometimes, you just take the meeting, you just show up, you just say, okay, I'm going to do this. And maybe you start slow. Maybe you show up and you talk to one person and you're like, okay, I checked the box. I talked to someone. I made a connection. The other thing that I think is really important too, that I think as busy women that we don't do, is I could run into you somewhere, Target, wherever, and say, oh, hey, it's great to see you. We should grab coffee and catch up. And what I've learned that you have to do is you have to book that appointment like right then. Because then I'll see you 2 months from now somewhere else at HEB or something, and say,
or you won't, because curbside,
right? That's true.
We've gotten into, and I actually made a vow to people at church that I was not going to do curbside anymore, as much as I can avoid it, because we are supposed to connect with people.
Right.
We were created that way.
Right.
Now I think about, I love psychology, and I love the study of how we are made as humans and what our needs are. And, when we look at post-pandemic, and we were kind of talking about this a little while ago with Kiwanis, she's president of Round Rock Kiwanis. So if you need a place to check out, I love what Kiwanis does. They are all about, helping develop leaders for the next generation. Is that what is y'all's particular club do?
So we say kids need Kiwanis. Yeah. So we support kids functions and charities, but also we did just give 2 scholarships to 2 high school seniors that are going off to college. Yeah. And so it's really, and the thing about Kiwanis is that you can get involved in high school. There's a Key Club. They have the Circle K Club in college. So it's something you can start in high school and then just kind of build your way up. But yeah, we try to do anything that has to do with kids. So whether that's rounding up some kids that are in foster care and putting them on a boat and taking them out on the lake, or whatever that is, that we can make a difference in their lives. And then hopefully they'll learn the value of giving back as well.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. As I think about Kiwanis and different things, we systemically as a people coming outside of the pandemic, a lot of people are in this survival mode still. We're in this mode because we were really suppressed into that mode for 3.5, almost 4 years, right? And sometimes it's hard to break those patterns. And so we think about those of us that still have family members, their spouses, there's somebody that's working from home and they're not out in the community, they're not creating connections. They're still like living in a mindset, many of them, of survival mode. And community, literally, when you look at psychology and you look at basic human needs and you look at Maslow's hierarchy of needs, community, or love and belonging, is the one thing that bridges the gap between living a life of scarcity and survival mode into a life of self-discovery, authentic confidence, and then finally, living in self-actualization, or what we like to call purpose. And so community is so important. And those little connections that we make are crucial. And those connections sometimes can be the pivoting places of our lives that open up dreams or ideas or vision or purpose in us. And you and I were talking about a opportunity that you had, and you've kind of looked at your career and you've looked at some different things and you thought, wow, I want to just kind of see what's out there. What can I expand myself into? How can I grow to serve people better? What can I do? And you talked about some connections that were made and what came out of that. So would you share that?
Yeah. So, I mean, I decided to derail I guess I took some risks in the last year. I had the opportunity to kind of fall out of the sky from a connection that I made that in business, and had the opportunity to build a brokerage from the ground up and build all the training and all the back end systems, which is something that I aspire to do myself, is to have my own business. But I had the opportunity to kind of do it with someone else's money, I guess, if you will. And so that was a great experience for me. It didn't pan out the way that I had hoped that it would.
Sure.
But looking back, it did give me additional skills and additional connections that I wouldn't have had if I hadn't decided to take the leap. And, I recently received a phone call and someone said, your name came up and we'd like to talk to you about an opportunity. And I had an idea of what that opportunity was going to be, and I was pretty sure I wasn't interested in it.
Sure.
And I was very forthright about that. I told the gentleman, I said, I don't think I'm interested, but I am still, if you're game, I'm still happy to meet for coffee and, get to know each other.
Right.
Because you just never know where that's going to lead you. And that has now led to a new friendship. We found out that we like the same kind of music. And, that you just never know. So, I mean, again, still not interested in the opportunity, but who knows what life's going to throw at you? Who knows, who knows if I can't help him find the right person for the opportunity with the connections that I have.
Right. Or how that could become a ripple effect in so many other areas of your life. When I think about the theme of becoming unbreakable, maybe one of the pillars, which I'm not changing right now, but one of the pillars could be curiosity. Because so many times I feel like and that's really our belief system and mindset. So I could really put curiosity in that. But I think about so many times we're one-dimensional thinkers. We have a very, focused outcome on life that we think based on all of our programming and all of that. And if we don't become curious, or we don't expand and think, what could happen if I explored this option?
I like to call that coming from curiosity, not judgment. Because I think sometimes we go into straight judgment.
Sure.
And instead of being curious. So when it's almost like when someone just not comes at you, but just decides that, something is what it is without asking the questions and really finding out more, and then realizing, oh, that wasn't what I thought it was at all.
Right.
And so
it's a pleasant surprise, right?
Right. And so I think that's part of what keeps us alive, is being curious. I think if you just kind of stay in judgment zone, or I'm going to stay in my little box, I think you're really missing out.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Well, I think, I want to go back to the earlier question about establishing community, because you talked a lot about, the importance of building your tribe, finding your people. But there are a lot of organizations. We talked about Kiwanis. We talked about a lead program within the round. I don't remember what the actual name of it is, but
Ascend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Those are all ways that you can find connection points. But for somebody who's really searching and trying to say, what do I even want out of life? I think one of the things that the pandemic did for us is it gave us all an opportunity to look back and say, what do I really want? What's really important to me? And we made those decisions. We cut out a lot of things we didn't need. Some of it was necessary. Some of it was by choice, right? But now we're coming back to the place where we're like, okay, now it's time to figure out purpose again. Now, we've survived. We're no longer running and hiding or whatever it is that we were doing. We're not having to preserve and protect as much anymore. Now we can step out a little bit, and we can step on, and try new things. So talk a little bit about some of the organizations that you've connected with. Or
So one thing is my sorority that, and people get very confused by this, but I'm a Delta Gamma, and I am the president of the Williamson County Delta Gamma alum group, which means we all went to different colleges,
Sure.
but we were all in the same sorority. And there's about 300 of us in Williamson County. Now, not everybody shows up for things.
Sure.
We're also working really hard to try to do a deep dive and like personally reach out to everyone, because again, that was kind of what I told, the board, is that not everyone, just because they get an invite to go have lunch, is just going to show up. They might not feel comfortable.
Right.
So that, and then just being involved like city-wise in the chamber, and then, trying to find something that kind of fills every bucket, whether
Right.
it's giving back to the community, whether it's being connected with like-minded people. I just, I think I've always been one of those people that's like, oh, here's a volunteer opportunity. Let me go check it out. It might not be the right fit for me.
Right.
So you've got me thinking now. It's like, how do we connect people with where they fit in? So one thing that the Roundrock Chamber just did that I thought was really great is they started a young professionals network.
Oh, nice.
And
now, what is young professionals?
Right. Well, the purpose of it though is we did a nonprofit evening where there was about 15 nonprofits from the Williamson County area.
Nice.
That had a little table set up, and so these young professionals, and some of them were not that young, but came in, and the whole idea was to connect them with something that touched the heartstrings, whether it's volunteering for United Way, whether it's volunteering for Backpack Friends, or whatever that looks like. So I think the biggest thing for people to do is to just find out what their passion is. So now I've got all these things in my head thinking like, how can someone be like a passion connector?
Yeah.
And say, okay, well, based on the things that you enjoy doing, this might be an option for you. I do see sometimes people on social media that will post on Facebook and say, I'm looking for a place to volunteer. Sure. That's very generic. And so if there was a way that, someone could connect someone with what their passions are, what would be a good fit for them, that would be great. I happen to have lots of passions and just like being involved, but I always do try to find ways to connect people. So, if I meet someone at a networking event, like I want to have lunch with them or sit down and have coffee with them because I want to get to know them, because if I'm able to connect them with someone, then that, that kind of fuels my soul. So
yeah. And that could be a big piece of your gifting and your purpose is connectors. We, a lot of times, I think as humans, a lot of times we think I'm only gifted if it's a tangible thing that I can say, this is like I'm a singer, or I'm a musician, or, I'm a speaker, or whatever. But the truth is that all of us bring such valuable tools to the table. And a connector is huge because, number one, we were made to be part of a body. We were designed to be connected. And there's a lot of people out there that are pretty gifted in division. And so when you have somebody that's gifted in connecting, that's a big, big deal. I think we never want to, overlook that as a superpower that you have, because it really is a big deal. And when I was, before I got into being fully self-employed and UnBreakable, I was a banker, and we learned a lot about connections in banking because you're always looking for more people that you can serve. And part of that is, I've been in BNI for a long time. I'm not currently in one, but their motto is givers gain. You're constantly looking for ways to connect people through different channels. Well, I will say, at our next UnBreakable conference, which I hope you can come, but it's August 22nd, downtown Austin at the Chateau Bellevue. It's a beautiful location. Our two pillars that we're digging into at this conference are our mindset and community. And so we're going to have some different women that are going to be sharing how they established community, because it is so important. Sometimes we have to, you find a passion and a purpose and a people that you want to support and love. Sometimes you got to create that community. Mm-hmm. But a lot of times you may not even maybe like, well, I don't have time to create it. I don't want to create it. I just want to plug in. And so that's where connecting with people like Michelle, who are real connected in the community, could be a great resource for you, because you can really find out. But I think, as we get to the place where we're hungry to discover what our purpose is, we get to the place where we're trying to figure out, who are my people? What is my passion? It's important to remember that sometimes our purpose is attached to pleasure. Sometimes it's, I really enjoy this. I love supporting kids like the Kiwanis. I love, pouring out in this capacity. Many times it's attached to pain. Something horrible happened in my life and I want to make a difference. And I want to, do something that changes the trajectory, not only for my family, but for other families, right? That a lot of times will fuel your purpose. But purpose is always connected to people, because that's how we were created, was to be connected to people. So if you can find, is it a pleasure or is it a pain? And then who are your resources? Who are the communities? Who are the organizations that are like-minded, like you said, that are doing those things? And sometimes you can just Google it. Like, hello, we do live in a Google world. This is true. We are on Facebook all the time, but Google still exists, right? And you can Google, what are the nonprofits in Austin? There's like 14,000 nonprofits in Austin. It's incredible, right? And every single one of them are hungry for volunteers. They're hungry for people that can jump on their mission, that are going to be like-minded. You just got to figure out what your like-mindedness is. It's true. Yeah. So Michelle, I know a lot of people are going to be like, oh my gosh, this woman knows everybody and she's so connected. What would be a good way for people to connect with you?
I guess probably on Facebook.
Well, we should talk about Facebook for a minute, because we did talk about Facebook earlier, and you're probably catching us on Facebook, maybe YouTube. Hopefully, some of you are catching our YouTube channel with Seven Pillars Talk Show, but you're probably catching this on Facebook Live. Let's talk about how Facebook has become such an important piece of our lives, and what you can do in the unfortunate event that your Facebook account is hacked.
Right. So Facebook was a huge part of where my business came from, because I was able to say what I was doing. I was able to show how my involvement in the community. I'd frequently get comments of, "You're everywhere. Like, do you sleep?"
Right.
And then just one day, it actually happened on April Fool's Day, and I thought it was an April Fool's joke. All of a sudden, no more Facebook, and so I was off Facebook for about 90 days. And I felt very disconnected, because I didn't know what was going on. No one knew what was going on with me. Right. And I didn't realize how reliant that I was, how reliant for my business that I was on Facebook. And so finally, I just decided that I had to create another Facebook account. And I know sometimes people go on Facebook diets where they're just like, I'm going to take some 30 days off of social media. I think 90 was a little excessive for me personally, but I'm happy to be back on Facebook. And now it's the one thing that I'll say is it's cleaned up. It like automatically got cleaned up, and I have to start from scratch. Yeah. And so it's been great. I'm building it back up, and yeah, so it's very different to feel. And then of course you just don't know, like, what happened, was this something that just some random person did? Sure. Or was this something that, I don't want to think that someone did it maliciously, but it could be a possibility. Right. And so, yeah, so I just, but I'm happy to be back.
Yeah. So. Well, I'm happy you're back, because that's how we connected. That's for right. This. The same thing happened. And for all of my business marketing gurus that are out there, they'll tell you, you've got to have like 10 different ways that you're, connecting with and build. And I'm sure you've got like 20, just knowing all of the different things that you're connected with. But, 10 different ways to stay connected with people if you are using social media as a business connection. In our fireplace business, Top Hat Chimney, last year, I think it was March, our Google account was deleted. And talk about devastation, because so much of our business came off of Google reviews. Like, so much of it came off of Google reviews, because people Google as we talked about that earlier, they don't go to Facebook and say, where's a chimney sweep? They go to Google, right?
Right.
And so, having over 500 reviews just instantly gone. And now we're trying to, you can't like go find those people. Like, hey, can you give me another review? Right. It's like building something all over again. Unfortunately, we have a good marketing team that is helping us do that. But, I think sometimes we rely so much on technology to help us. And one of the things you mentioned before we jumped on the call was, sometimes we just need to authenticate those relationships a little bit and get people's phone numbers. Like,
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true.
Yeah.
Well, and I think that's also the really good reason to network and be out and about, because even though I wasn't on Facebook, I was still doing all the things that I always did to keep those connections.
Yeah.
So, and I was telling my story while I was connecting with people so that when they did get that friend request from me, they knew that it was real and it wasn't, because a lot of the people are the same people that I was connected with before.
Right.
I started with the whole text message. My Facebook got hacked and I'm back on. I sent you a friend request. And then I'm like, okay, I can't do this for like
2,000 people.
Yeah, I can't do that.
Yeah.
So
well,
now
you don't
I'm
have
just
their
like,
phone numbers
right,
too. Yeah.
Right. So I was just like, I'm just going to take it as it is. And it's been great. So, I mean, it's been great, like rebuilding it and building it the way that I want to build it. So,
yeah. And I think, I jokingly say authenticate relationships because everything's trying to authenticate us. Like our passwords are trying to authenticate us and all of that. But it really is a deal. Like, one of the things that I deal with my children and even sometimes myself is that social media gives us this false sense of connection, this false sense of community. And at the end of the day, sometimes you just need to pick up the phone and call somebody. And sometimes you need to have coffee with your friends. You need to go out and have dinner. You need to see people, hug people. Like you can't get that. We can send heart emojis and hug emojis and Giphies or however you say that, right? But there is a difference in real connection. And so one of the things that I appreciate about you and your life that you live is that you are so connected. You don't rely solely, while it was probably very difficult and unfortunate that Facebook was deleted, you weren't hindered fully by it because you had all these other connections that you were established with.
Right.
Yeah.
And authenticity is correct, because I try to make a point of when I do meet someone new that sometimes you just instantly connect with someone and you feel like, you could tell them anything, is that schedule that coffee, schedule that lunch. And then I'm real adamant about, like today, I was supposed to have lunch with someone and I was actually supposed to have happy hour with someone, and they both have to reschedule for various reasons.
Sure.
But I'm the type of person that's going to say, okay, here's when I'm available again. And because we know sometimes too, when things get canceled, they don't get rescheduled, they fall by the wayside. So I'm constantly like, okay, well, we're going to find another time to do this until they tell me to go away.
But you value connection.
Right.
And that is a gift. Again, just valuing that connection is such a gift because we need each other. I don't care if it's for business or, to further a cause or just to be somebody's light in sometimes a very dark world, right? Or a dark day or whatever.
Right.
One of my favorite friends, she comes to our conferences and I've known her for a while. Her name is Connie. And like almost every day she posts some silly, fun coffee emoji. And I'm like, girl, you rock, because I could drink coffee all day. You're speaking my love language, right? But we need people and connections are so important. And, when I think about the UnBreakable journey that I help people with, we do have to step back a moment and, not let our connections manipulate our lives, because, sometimes we can go to the opposite extreme and, we are super connected that we forget who we are internally. Right. And so that's why pillar one is self-discovery in the UnBreakable life, is we've got to know who we are. And then we got to figure out, well, why do we think the way we think? Why do we have the belief patterns that we have? What is our defining moments in life and trauma? What are those things? But when you look at them in that sequence and you put community where it's at, now you're connecting with people who think similar to you, who, fill your cup, who you can fill theirs, and that kind of thing. I was talking to a friend yesterday, and I kind of blew her away with this comment. And I'm like, okay, I know this is like the Holy Spirit comment because Teresa would never say this. But I was thinking about a friend that I had for a while who we've kind of drifted apart as I've grown and done things with life and with business, and she's grown and done things with life and with business. And I've come to the place where I've realized that's kind of a toxic relationship, and a lot of people are so much about saying toxic person, but they don't realize that we could all be toxic people to somebody, right? Because if we don't know who we are, or what toxic is, when you think about, when something becomes toxic, it's the chemical ingredients or the chemical thing in that item and yours don't blend. Right. And so if you are a very much connecting person and you're always on the go and you've always got this bubbly spirit and you're, making things happen and you could be toxic to somebody who's totally introverted, doesn't believe in the value of connection. That doesn't mean we're bad people. It just means that our energies are toxic to one another, And when we know who we are and why we think the way we think, it's a lot easier to find the people that we're supposed to be in connection with.
I think it's also just your season of life sometimes too.
Yeah.
Of the type of people that you're connecting with is, it changes over time based on where you are in your journey, and maybe you're connecting with someone, just at the right time.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm just a huge fan of, if you meet someone and you instantly connect, then you need to kind of take that to the next level, because you don't know what that's going to bring, and you don't know what opportunities are going to open up for you. And I look and I reflect at the end of the day every day and say, who did I connect with? What can I do more? What can I do for them? And how can I help them with whatever journey that they're going on? And I feel like I get a lot of that back from the people that I connect with too.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I think there's a good balance too. And, a lot of people, again, going back to the idea of networking, feeling hard for some people, like networking at public speaking on those same like playing fields of right. And I think it's a mindset shift of, taking it from networking that's typically very transactional into connecting, which is all about relationships. And Michelle, was there a time in your career where you were like, I've got to make this more relational? Or do you feel like that was always something that was within you?
I think it was always something that I've just always been a relationship-based person. I mean, I've always been in a sales role where it's not been transactional. It's been relationship. So, I mean, just even in my business, I don't work with anybody that I don't know. So all of my business comes from repeat and referrals. Just because that's important to me, to continue to build those relationships and those connections, other than just being, transactional and not being able to do that. So I think, I've as long as I can remember, I've volunteered and put too much on my plate.
Yeah.
And I think now as I get older, I'm finally realizing what is really important, what I need to say yes to, what I might be too committed for. But yeah, just for me too, I mean, people laugh all the time when someone says, "Oh, well, Michelle knows everyone," and I'm like, "Well, I've lived in the community for so long,
sure,
and I've got some very, very old connections, like just helping a family move here that lived in the Round Rock area for 33 years and just moved to Virginia for 10 years, and then are now moving back to the area." So,
oh, yeah. And I think about that as you were telling me about it, and I did see it on your Facebook, but I think how comforting that is for that family to know that they're coming back to somebody who knows their name. I think I talk a lot about basic needs, human needs. We all want to be significant. We all want to know that somebody sees us, right? We want to be seen. We want to be heard. We want to be felt. And when you establish connections that way, that's what you're doing for people, is you're filling that cup in their lives that maybe nobody else is doing, Right. That's huge. I love that. Love it. So I think that people who are looking to figure out what your community looks like is you really need to try some things out. Take some time. I love, I talk a lot about learning to be still, but sometimes we need those quiet moments where we can sit back and say, where do I want to go? Like I used to hate the question of where do you want to be in 5 years? Because I don't ever know that answer. But
it's a moving target.
It is a moving target because we don't know. Because
Right.
those connections, I've always heard that you're one connection away from changing your life.
Yeah.
Right? Like literally, we could be one connection away from changing our lives. So we don't really know that, but we can get really still and say, who am I? What are the things that make me tick? What are the things that put a fire in my belly? And what are the things that put stomach acid in my belly? Because if it's stomach acid, I probably don't want to hang out there, right? But if it's a fire in my belly and I can get passionate behind it, where is the community that's connected to that? Because that's where I'm going to excel. And that's probably where I'm going to provide the most value as well, right? Yeah. Well, Michelle, thank you for jumping on with me today. It's always good to get connected with amazing women that are out doing awesome things in the community. And you will see her probably at the Round Rock Chamber meetings, perhaps at the Ascend meetings. Is that what we call it? Ascend? You might see her at Kiwanis. And when can they find you at Kiwanis?
We meet at Anchor Bar in Round Rock. It's in the La Frontera area.
Okay.
At noon on Wednesdays, every Wednesday. We typically have a speaker as well. So we try the best we can to get speakers that have something to do with children, but we've had Hope House out. We've had Texas Humane Heroes. Yeah. So we try to have a speaker. It's just an hour long. Okay. So you come, you show up, you eat, you listen to a speaker, and you're on your merry way for the day. So everybody has to eat.
Everybody has to eat. Yes. And you fill a couple of buckets. Number one, you can find out, whether Kiwanis or the speaker could be part of your community, or both, right?
Right.
You'll get to network and meet some really cool people, and you'll get fed. So, there's like 4 things off of your list for the day. Anywhere else they can find you?
Gosh, I can't even think, but I'm involved in a Chaparral Women's Club too. So that's,
what is that?
So Chaparral Women's Club, it's similar to any other women's club, but basically we do a service project every month. Okay. And we have a social/gala, depending on what we're going to do for that year. All the money that we raise goes to grants for nonprofits. So we have a grant application deadline, open time for people to apply for grants. Right. And then we give all of the money away that we raise to local nonprofits.
I love that.
So, so it's fun. It's a social, we're very social friendly, but we do something in the community every month and then have one big event to give all the money back.
That's so cool.
And we're actually meeting, we have I don't want it to conflict with your event, but we are having our first prospective new member event on August 22nd at 6:30.
Well, you could go to both.
Okay.
You could totally, because UnBreakable it's 10 to 3.
Okay, awesome.
So you could do both.
Okay,
Where is
yours? It's at Centro in downtown Round Rock. It's an event center.
It's
kind of behind Golden Chick, which I grew up eating, which I won't eat anymore. But
when I worked at the bank, I worked right off of 35 and 79, and Golden Chick and Popeyes and all the things were on my route. Thundercloud was too, though, so I felt a little healthy sometimes. Yeah. Okay, so tell us a little bit about that event.
So basically, it's really kind of like a happy hour, and all the board members will get up and speak and tell everybody what we do. And you'll get a chance to network with the women that are already in the club, and then women that are interested in being in the club, and see if that's a fit for you, if you feel comfortable there. It's only $75 a year to join.
Wow.
So, and we, like I said, we meet once a month. We have a general meeting, and then we do a service project every month. Whether it's at Texas Baptist Children's Home, we've done work for Central Texas Table of Grace. So a lot of different nonprofit organizations. So that's another thing. Another way to connect too is to join for women to join a women's club, and then be able to have those opportunities to volunteer at different places
and to figure out what you love,
to figure out what works for you.
Yeah, that's so cool. Well, I'm so appreciative that you are so connected and you've got all this wisdom. And I know it serves you because we can't give and not receive. I mean, that's just the way that we were created. When we put out into the world, things come back to us, whether it is wisdom, sometimes it's wisdom, but many times it's blessings of relationships, community, connection, and fulfillment. And so I know you're receiving all of that with all that you do. So thanks again for being on today.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, friends, thank you for watching today's Seven Pillars Talk Show with Michelle Sherwood. And I know you're going to find her all over the places. But I do hope that you take some nuggets out of today and understand the value, number one, of who you are and how community needs you, but also to become the best version of you, how you need community. So join us next week on the Seven Pillars Talk Show and join us at UnBreakable 2024. Come and learn how the community and all of the seven pillars can help you take back your power and live an unbreakable life. See you soon.